Never.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Brenda and I, our chats, our Friday morning chats. We touched base yesterday and we decided we were going to talk again about emotional intelligence and carry on kind of where we started last week, but we're actually not going to pull any punches today. So we're going to be really good and keep our language as clean as we can because I'd like to see this video stay up. But we definitely have a lot to say. So how are you doing today, Brenda?
Doing very well, Sandy. And you?
Very well. I'm doing well. It's nice out today, sun's shining. I don't think it's that cold out. I haven't been outside yet, but it's, I don't know. I'm liking it already because the days are getting longer. Like you think December 21st was the shortest day of the year. We're in the glide path. Now we're going to the longest day. I bought some cream yesterday and the date was in March and I'm like, yes, spring is right around the corner. That's how I get through the hard months, right? The winter months.
You know what? It's important that we do that for sure. And they are just small increments, right? So I always follow the solstice to Imbolc, which is the 2nd of February, to the spring equinox, to, you know, all of those. Through it all, right?
Yeah, definitely.
In more ways than one, the light is increasing.
It is. And I like how you're saying that the light is increasing because sometimes there's been a lot of language thrown out and we have quite a language salad when it comes to truth, new age, all kinds of things. But light can mean the truth as well. So when you say the light is increasing, part of that is awareness to who we are, what is really going on, including the negative things that are going on so we can see that, bring the light, the truth to it and how harmful it is so that we can make positive changes going forward, right? Yeah, absolutely. So we got talking yesterday about the human trafficking that's happening in Ontario. And I think we touched a base on that last week. And something that came across my feed was that 24 schools down in the Niagara region, the human trafficking the children during the day. And parents aren't aware of this. And so a few things have come up. I've been out this morning on social media chit-chatting and sharing my opinion on things and talking about the feminazis that work in the school system and what the problem is with this LGBT and all the confusion and sexualizing the children. But so why I'm saying all this, there's a Telegram channel, I believe his name is Agent_A1, and he was talking about this. He got told to shut up, which annoyed me to no end because I was starting to learn a lot of things. I was looking to see what all the logos were, the pedophile logos were. And what was really interesting about this is they're on daycare centers. They use cute little hearts or cute little swirls. And one of them, I can't remember what town it was down in the Niagara region. He said it's right on the sign that says welcome to the city name. And it's in two-tone paint. So anybody who knows to look for that logo knows that you're okay to commit pedophilia in that city. Is it that this bad in Canada and in Ontario? And my answer is, I think it is.
I believe so.
Right. So this is where all this is information is so imperative because people are coming out saying parents should be taking their children out of school because of what's going on with the mask mandate. And I'm going to say this right now. If people have not clued in that this virus has not been isolated, I'm going to just say it that way, according to Pat King and Dina Henshaw, the health minister out in Alberta, has come out and said we cannot isolate the virus. If people have not figured out this COVID shit is just designed to keep everybody in fear and keep everybody afraid and everybody not looking at the truth, because basically what is really happening is they don't want you to find out how prolific pedophilia is within the system. This is what they don't want people to know. So anybody sits here and says, wear a mask, get the shot, whatever, go fuck yourself. Oh, sorry, I'm not going to say that. But grow up. Understand that there's more at play here than your idiotic need to conform. And this is what I think really is going to be the big push going forward, because if we don't start to understand this is what it's about the children, it's about their energy, it's about harvesting the children's energy, their sex energy, their life force energy, then what are we doing? Because by the time all this flu stuff passes, they're going to have decriminalized pedophilia. And that's what basically is going on behind the scenes while everybody's pretending to play doctor. Isn't that, and since today's we're talking about emotional maturity. Remember when you played doctor when you were a kid? You're still playing doctor. Now everybody's a doctor and tells everybody else what they need to do for in the world of medical, but you don't have a toy stethoscope around your neck.
No.
Yeah, so that's the difference with it, right? So you were sharing some interesting things yesterday about what goes on in your neighborhood. We were talking about Gord Stuckless. Can you
Yeah.
share a bit about, like, this is everywhere, so it's not, I'm not just pointing out your neighborhood, and please don't share where you live, it's not about that. But it's, like, we're all in Ontario, right? But it's, I'd like you to share with whoever's watching this, what exactly happened regarding him. And if we can explain who Gord Stuckless was, do you mind saying?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty darn sure, excuse me, I'm pretty sure it was 2003. And the reason I think that, if I'm not, and I did not research to validate or confirm that, but I'm pretty sure it was 2003, because I actually was in Toronto taking a class and a course down there for a certification. Where I was like right across the street from his first halfway house that they let him out into. And there was some about him being there, and they were talking about him being in shackles and stuff. And anyway, so he was allowed to leave there and go to his mother's house. And I guess he was staying there for quite some time, but then of course, that's not acceptable. So they pushed him out of Toronto, and they told her that he had to leave. Well, he came to my town because he had family here. And I don't think it was, maybe if it was 3 or 4 days, that was an exaggeration in time. But there was a knock on the door of his family member's home, and they said, "You're not here." And the kicker was that he ended up in a house right behind our public school. Right behind a public school.
And these are no accidents.
Nope, not at all. And the fact of the matter is, it was not long before they were knocking at the door in the middle of the night and said, "Get the hell out of town."
And I think it's really good that we share with the people watching this. It wasn't the police who came and said you aren't allowed to be near a school. It was the people who took the matter into their own hands and said, "Get out."
That wasn't public knowledge. The only reason I even know that, by the way, is because I happen to know the people. I knew them. And up until his name became a public name, it didn't, it had no bearing on me who these people were. It didn't matter. They weren't a part of his life. The only reason he even went there was because of the family connection. He had nowhere else to go. And so I ran into the lady who I knew there, and she told me about it, that this is what had happened. She goes, "Oh yeah, let me tell you." Yeah, because it doesn't take long for word to travel fast in a small town, in a very small town. So it was not the police that came at all. It was the middle of the night, and they were basically knocking on the door and telling him, "That's it, you got to get out of here." Now, interestingly enough, again, 15-20 minutes away from me is another small town full of pedophiles. Back when that all broke and it was discovered that he was here and everything, they actually released the registered listings of these pedophiles, and there was 11 of them in that small town 20 minutes away from our public school, and a bunch of other public schools too. When you live in small towns and concentrated like that, there might be some distance between the towns, but there's not that much time. And the only reason it's not really thought of in a way that is, you can walk it. You know what I mean? You can walk from town to town, so they don't even need to have a bus, a license, or anything like that, which we don't really have here. But so yeah, there's a ton of them, and it's prevalent all the way up. Like, I know that there's organizations and cults and things like that are operating just north of me in places like Barrie and Aurelia. And this isn't just human trafficking. This is a lot worse too, right? Satanist crap and all that other shit that goes down. So yeah, it's got to be talked about, because that's where that's where we got to address it, is the schools, because that's where they're getting the kids.
Where they're getting the kids. And we say that it's all in the families. And I know there's something called the adverse childhood experiences. It's a test that was created. I don't recall the man's name who created it, but what adverse childhood experiences. And basically, if you had certain things happen to you in your childhood, you would have one column of mental illness, probably for each event that had happened. And what was interesting, they only looked at the primary caregivers. And I made a comment on social media once and said, "What about the teachers and the coaches and the priests?" And this woman came back and says, "Well, we got to start somewhere." And it's the people who work in the system who are trained to be stupid. What would it have taken to put on that study all the different organizations, Boy Scouts, whatever it is, that hang around children, and look at all of them? What would it have taken to adjust that? But they're only looking at the primary caregivers because they don't want us looking at the professions who are promoting the pedophilia. The teachers who are promoting this. You're teaching 12-year-olds to let somebody fuck you up the ass. That's called sodomy. That is child rape. If it was somebody like Gord Stuckless teaching that, he would be charged for it. But if a teacher does it, it's educational. Some of these women need to be charged for crimes against children. So I've created a list of, it's like an oath of do no harm. And I broke down the 7 pillars of abuse, whether it's emotional, mental, physical, sexual, spiritual, and neglect. And I put down all the examples of what sex abuse is against a child. And when you look at the sex ed curriculum, it's promoting sex abuse of children. But why can nobody stand up and tell these teachers, this is where you step off, you need to be put in jail? And I think it's going to be the teachers that actually go up to the students and say, or go up to the parents, sorry, who go up to the teachers and say, you teach my child that, I'm going to come and you and I are going to have a chat. And maybe it'll be after class, but we're not allowed to use violence because no, you can sexually abuse a child, that's okay, but you can't use physical violence against somebody and restrain them from doing it. And this is where, when the sex ed curriculum was introduced in 2015, Kathleen Wynne came out with a tolerance, we must practice tolerance. That was her anti-bullying campaign, I think was in the same year. So we have to be tolerant while you teach somebody's child how to let somebody fuck them up the ass. And these are the women doing this, right? So when you're talking about where all the abuse happens, this I got out of the offline, and this shows basically the 400 series highway. And it shows where all the human trafficking is. It starts over here in Windsor, and it comes all the way up to Toronto. It goes all the way up to Ottawa, Montreal, Cornwall. And you can see what you're talking about, Barrie up here. And Owen Sound just recently made it in the news that, I can't remember if it was the chief of police who's suspected of pedophilia and the human trafficking. So they're even telling us to our face where it's happening on the 400 series highway. And where are the police? Nowhere to be found, right? So this is why all this is so interesting as we're talking about this. Like I said, when I found out 24 schools are known in Niagara region for human trafficking the children from school, that means the teachers have to know the child's not in class.
What happened when you skipped a class, the parents would get a call. I mean, that's how it was, right? Like you'd call home, why isn't your kid in class right now? It's just insane.
It's insane and it's criminal.
It absolutely is.
It is, right? So this is interesting. So I've been watching this for a while. So I'm pulling off different opinion pieces, whatever, news and opinion, Q&A, Rutgers law professor who says pedophilia is not a crime. So these are the lawyers who are trying to convince the public. University academics say pedophilia is natural for males. These are the academics, the sick fucks in the universities who are the ones teaching the frontline workers, right? I thought I had a third one. Here's another one. Bishop accountability, professors for pedophilia. And you think that they are what? Teaching your child to let somebody sodomize them or have sex with them because they're trying to make you sexually diverse? Like, this is where we really need to start asking the questions and really look at what this glue is here to do. It's here to keep you from watching what they want to do to your children. Because when people find out that the academics want to fuck your kids, and that's what they're here for. Kathleen Wynne passed a law. I looked for it online. I didn't print this one off. Normally, if you have been charged with sex crimes against children, you would lose your teaching license. She passed a law that after 5 years, you can reapply. And we're to think that snake, she's not a very attractive woman. She's not. And I know not supposed to say that, but she's definitely the feminine energy in her relationship. You look at her husband, Jane. I think Jane's got a male frame. Same as, it would be interesting to put him up on that facial software recognition software where they say Selena Williams and Michelle Obama are males. Did you see that one? They can point out the gender differences based on the frames. But so are we to sit here and assume that these women have these children's best interests at heart? And it's the feminazis that don't give a damn about anybody but themselves. And that's these women who work in government, in politics, in education.
And are they, I mean, I can't see all of them being that way. I think some of them maybe are, and I'm not calling them victims, but they're too caught up in it now to get out of it sort of idea. So they kind of just play along to keep their own. I mean, who knows who gets threatened with things and whatnot. I mean, and as for sexual education, let's face it, we're talking diversity or perversity. Like, I'm not sure which one, right? Because ultimately that's not even the job of a school. No. To teach a child about the life. Like, fuck, when the hell does that even happen?
I can't remember what school board, teachers went into a library, they found 36 books teaching pornography and showing male on male sex and showing all kinds of perversion in the school library. So they went through all the books, they found 36 books. Who's the publisher of these books?
And who's ordering
these books for the school board?
Right? Who's ordering them into the library? That's what I want to know.
So I have no sympathy for these women. I don't give a shit if they've been threatened or not. Because if you're teaching 6 genders and 58 sexual identities, chances are you don't know your clitoris from your vagina. I'm going to say that. Clitoris in French means petite penis. So many women are out now operating in their masculine energy that they're pretending they're guys, but they say the men are the abusers of them, but then they turn around and abuse as well. So they're acting like the very men they say they hate. So there's a lot of confusion around all this, right? Here's another article I found from Psych Central. 40% of women with severe mental illness are victims of rape or attempted rape. So what we call mental illness is the sign of victimization. And then we've got Kathleen Wynne, It's Never Okay. She put this report out in 2015 to try to normalize the sex ed curriculum to show she was doing the right thing. And what she wrote on page 31, health consequences of sexual assault can include personal injury, sexually transmitted diseases, and unwanted pregnancy. Mental health consequences can be severe and long-term, including anxiety and panic attacks, eating disorders, substance abuse, depression, and other mental health problems. So we call the victims mentally ill. This is how fucked psychology is. So we don't call the abusers mentally ill. And I was at Ben Levin's trial and they used a CAMH psychiatrist, I don't know if it's a psychiatrist or psychologist, to say that Ben Levin was only having a fantasy. It wasn't real. All that stuff about having sex with his children, with his wife, that was just a fantasy. But CAMH are the ones that try to deal with and help support the victims, but they're the ones perpetrating the abuse. They're the ones making excuses. Here's another one, is pedophilia, sexual orientation. This is James Cantor. He's from CAMH in University of Toronto. Same place Ben Levin taught. So he says pedophilia is just a sexual orientation. He was just on with Don Lemon saying we should cut the pedophiles some slack. You listen to his high squeaky voice, there's no doubt in my mind he's not homosexual, right? He's probably a catcher with a squeaky voice like that. I don't imagine he's a pitcher. But so he's come right out and said, this is 2014, trying to push that pedophilia is a sexual orientation. Well, everybody's running around with this COV scare going on. This is what they don't want you to see. And I'm getting tired of people pretending to be smart and thinking that they understand what all this is about when they're not, right? So they talk about online training to combat human trafficking, but all they talk about is the labor trafficking. They don't talk about the sex trafficking, which is 85% of the trafficking. Another one, 80%. Sorry, I can't remember if this one says 80%. Of foster care is the front for human trafficking. Yet we give them government money and pay them, and they're the ones who are doing the trafficking. We were talking about this yesterday. It's interesting. I was working with this woman she was trying to get her daughter back, but they were trying to traffic her through the system. You cannot have a caseworker. You have a children's aid lawyer, and you have the children's lawyer. You have to have all three of those people complicit if you're going to traffic a child, because if one of them stands up and says, no, this teacher's lying or this person's lying, you can't traffic that child. This is how ingrained it is in the system. So you have to be willing to traffic children, and you all know who you are. I'm sure they know which children's lawyer, if there's one or two of them that work in an office, that they both are willing to traffic children and not do the right thing. Why are they not in jail?
No. Everybody's an accomplice. I don't care what anybody says. Everybody who knows and doesn't do any damn thing about it, or is, obviously participating, absolutely, and should be held. Just because you don't do anything about it doesn't make you innocent of it. Period.
Totally. And then you look at all the residential schools. Oh, it didn't exist, and the Highway of Tears doesn't exist, and Picton Farm. No, that was just a fantasy. Residential schools are history. The backlash is just getting started. So these women who come forward and say they were abused in the residential school, and what does Trudeau do? He gives September 30th federal employees a paid off holiday. What a slap in the face. And this is really interesting to know that abuse is about torment. It's about the mental anguish. This is what I think they're using for Lush. The mental anguish, that they torment you once again through the system. And this is what's causing people to have mental illness breakdowns as well. Like, I can't
I
get
do-
paid for people's salaries.
I deal with a lot of natives. I work with a lot of natives. I love my peeps. They're amazing. I've heard some stories, I'm going to tell you, and they're absolutely heart-wrenching, heart-wrenching. Do you know? And I mean, it's disgusting. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. The amount of money that flows through, especially, what's his name? Fucking Fingers, that he hands out to everybody else. But do you know that if you were a survivor of a residential school and you were abused, sexually abused, do you know the most you can get? You have to recount your entire story and tell how your entire life has been fucking traumatized, only to get, do you know how much?
30,000?
$250,000. That's it. For a lifetime and a whole fucking ancestry full of shit, abuse, and torture. 200, that's all. That's all. We're born worth more than that with the fucking number on our birth certificate. That's disgusting. That's just one more slap in the face.
It is totally a slap in the face. And look at Justin Trudeau. The first thing he did when he became prime minister, lowers the age of anal sex. Why would you do that, Justin? Why, Justin? Why is that prick not in jail or been executed for crimes against humanity?
He's coming up.
We have no standards in our society. We think we have this great society, that we are all so noble and just so amazing because we all have maybe a house with a double car garage or what have you. But this is what is really fueling our society, is pedophilia and child sex abuse. And it's in the hospitals, it's in governments, it's in the education system. The police are guilty of this. You look at Project Spade, they caught police who are trafficking these children. How many of these police accompany the mental health workers or the Children's Aid Society and scoop kids? I've been watching this happening online right now. They're showing pictures of police going in and grabbing kids from people's homes, but they say, stand up for yourself, say no. But you can't say no to a police officer who's grabbing you and hauling you off in the back of a cruiser and ripping you from your family. Like, where do these fuckers get off? And this is what I think really needs to start coming out. We need to have this conversation. So when somebody tells you that it's about a flu, it's not. It's about human trafficking and fucking your children. And we live in a sick society.
Normalizing bullshit, normalizing masks and all this other crap just normalizes pedophilia and eventually, you know, we know it's going to get into the even worse stuff that's out there. What else do they do to those kids? Like, no, it's never normal. Never, ever, ever. And it's all antichrist. It's completely against God, against creation, completely destructive and destroying of everything that God or that, you know, we are created to be. It's incredible.
It is. And it's interesting. I was reading a book, John Diamond, Your Body Never Lies. And a lot of the materials I get are from the 50s or the 40s. I found they made more sense back then than the nonsense that's being printed now. And in this book, it said our thymus, which is your immune system, which is that little mound on your upper chest. You tap that, you can help bring your immune back on. You can activate your immune system. When you look at the acupressure point, that's the front line is the central vessel. This is CB19. So when they went after the to make us all believe that there was this flu out there, they energetically went after the immune system as well, right?
Well, they targeted in the lungs, which was a attack on who we are as sacred beings and what.
Like slight technical glitch there.
Yeah, we went retrograde at like 6:41 this morning and been causing a lot of distortion, And we have two other planets in retrograde, Uranus and Venus. And interestingly enough, Uranus is a planet of extremes and freedoms and eccentricities and just all of those wonderful things. And it's in this sort of agitated state, right? Extremes, freedoms, and eccentricities. I would say so. Venus is completely retrograde, and it's all about relationships, love, and how we view ourselves and how we relate to others and all that. People are having meltdowns, relationships are strained, definitely a retrograde experience. And then Mercury comes along just to mess it all up a little more and throw some communication bullshit out there. So just about the time you think you finally get your shit together with Uranus and got it together with Venus, Mercury says, I don't think so.
And when it's interesting to see how much is being shaken up in this time, and it's really a great topic that you're bringing that up, because we realize that it's bigger than just us as human beings. There's more at play going on here, right?
Huge, yeah. And this is just the CV19 stuff. This is all just a distraction to keep us away from what's really happening. And then there's so many levels to just even that, you know, it's not just about I mean, it's all about the kids, but there's so many ways that it's all about the kids.
It is.
So many, not just about what's happening to them on the streets, it's what's happening to them underneath, you know, behind the scenes, in the darkness, and those horrible experiences that they're going through and growing through. I mean, my God, you know, and it's all of that. It's all of that. And it's important for us to note that this is in our backyard. This is not happening over there or somewhere else. This is right fucking here. You know, when I heard about the Satanist cult in, I think it was either Aurelia or Barrie or something like that, and it was like both. They were trafficking children, and they were bringing some in for certain nefarious experiences. And I kept thinking to myself, how do the neighbors not know? But then you hear all these stories, right? Like this serial killer who kept people chained up in his basement for whatever, you know, and they didn't notice anything different. How the fuck do you not notice? And I realized it's because we were all taught not to pay attention.
Yeah.
Not to pay attention. Don't look. Close your drapes. It's none of your business. Don't say anything. Mind your own, you know? And then what happens? You know, I had, you know, all the way along for decades now, we've had channels for this stuff. You know, I know I had family that were involved, that were unfortunately taken into, you know, Browndale.
Taken into what?
Browndale, a Browndale group home, one of the Browndale group homes. You know the Browndale story?
No.
Browndale. So look that up. There's a class action suit. You want to talk about sexual abuse in places run by organizations and whatnot. And Browndale is horrible for that. Like, absolutely. And some of them, you know, there were some that were like, some of them were native kids and stuff, but some of them were just average subdivision, you know, and regular folk will call them working class, blah, 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 ends up there. I happen to know one who was, and tortured and sexually abused and all of these things, you know. And where do they go? Where do the kids of the group homes go? Because those are the people that are supposed to be helping you.
Anybody who says they're helping you right now tends to have a nefarious agenda. When I was talking about this fellow on Telegram, he was posting all the different pedophile logos, and they're showing them on daycare centers, all the organizations that work with children. I always thought it was strange, the one learning facility, Come On, Kumon. And like, you start looking at all of the logos. And I remember one time I was visiting somebody out of town, and I had to take a detour, and I went through a local town, Elmira, and I stopped at a light, and I looked up, and there was a daycare center there, and it had the heart, the girl lover heart beside it. So they advertised right in front of our faces with all these logos. So why are the police not putting these logos out for the people to see, that we can start understanding when they're advertising? Why would the police want to keep this secret? And I know some police who are nice. I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm not implying that at all. But if you're intentionally kept in the dark, you have to ask why you don't understand what's going on. It's your responsibility to ask why you're only being shown certain issues that society is facing, and not the worst of what our society is facing. So when you say the group home, I'm sure there's logos somewhere in the signage that lets everybody know it's okay to do this in this home. The only people who don't know would be the victims, or the people who they're maybe not inclined to think that way, so they wouldn't clue into what's going on. This person on Telegram, he showed a sign. I don't recall what city it was down in Niagara region, in that region. And it had a pedophile logo and two tones so it would be the backdrop, but it had like a two-tone pedophile logo in there. So you know, when you go into that town, that pedophilia is acceptable by the powers that be. This is how sick this is. Who painted the sign? Who put the sign up? Who ordered the sign with these swirls in it? Who created the artwork for these signs? And this is what we're paying our tax dollars to the city employees. This is what we're paying our educators, our police services, the mental health monkeys. Those people I have no respect for that industry whatsoever. The victims are the ones that get labeled mentally ill. How did you fuck that up, mental health? Like, there's no excuses other than it's intentional, right? So you talk about these panels. There was November 10, 2010, there was a panel at the Research Center for Research and Education on Violence Against Women and Children at Western University, where they just had those 30 virgin sacrifices, right? So this is the last report. This was November 11th and 12th, 2010, 11/11, 11/12, 10. So you know that this is probably just more black magic. But back at the time, they put their names. They put all their names of who participated in the panel. So then I got to look at this, right? So I got their emails, I got their name, I got their jobs. So David Finkelhor is the top leading director for Crimes Against Children Research Center, professor of sociology, University of New Hampshire, co-director, Family Research Laboratory. I think he's a U.S. top pedophile. So they start bringing these people in, because then you got Peter Jaffe, who educates the chief justices on rape. And so the judges come out and say, why didn't you close your legs? What were you wearing? You like that? Are we to believe these people don't get it? Barb McQuarrie, I would say she's Ghislaine Maxwell. David Wolf from Children's Mental Health, CAMH. So all these people don't get it. They say nobody over 35 is a sex offender. So they give me all of these email addresses. So then we got a pediatric emergency child protection, University of Western Ontario, manager for research and training at Boost Child Abuse Prevention Center. So Boost is the one who says, if you see two children, 5-year-olds playing doctor, tell them to go in the other room and play privately. So Boost, even the child services organizations. I was listening to one of these honeys tell this to a group of people. Amanda Topham, PhD candidate, Shelley Cardinal, National Aboriginal Consultant, respected violence and abuse prevention, Noreen Nathanson, Crown Counsel, Criminal Law Policy Branch, Michelle McIntyre, Children's Aid Society of London, Linda Stevens, Center for Children and Families in the Justice System, Frank Goldschmidt, Detective Staff Sergeant, I bet, Rick Goodwin, Executive Director, the Men's Project. So they've got absolutely everybody in here who's connected to either a victim or abuse. And they say nobody over 35 is a sex offender. John Swales is the only survivor in the group. He told me, he wouldn't tell me who it was, if it was Jaffe or Wolf, but they went and watched him at different presentations he did. And they would sit in the audience and they would watch. And I think they didn't approach him until they knew he didn't understand that they were the pedophiles. Like they're very careful. He said one of them told him that a priest touched his bummy when he was a boy. So they pretend they're victims. So that you don't, so this is how fucking sneaky these guys are. Bernie Gallagher, Detective Sergeant Paula Rosway, OPP West Region Abuse Issues. Lisa Hitch, Family, Children and Youth Directorate. Myra Stevens, Education Officer, Curriculum and Assessment Policy Branch, Ministry of Education. Sly Castaldi, Executive Director, Guelph Wellington Women in Crisis. This guy on Telegram showed us women's shelters have pedophile logos in them. So you know, even some of the women's shelters, they're hunting children in these things, right? Maureen Reed, Program Director, Children's Aid Society. Rhonda Hulberg Consulting. Ann Lee Stratman, Center for Research and Education. So she works at the Research Center. This is the last publication that I've seen all of their emails on. So when you look at the Human Trafficking Act, combating human trafficking in Ontario, there isn't one name on that report. 95% of the money goes to agencies that monitor outside of Canada, but it even says in the report, 95% of the human trafficking happens to Canadians in our border. So like all these people, we pay all these salaries to all these people. They're either pedophiles or too stupid to know they're being played. What are we doing? And this is why we have to start asking these questions, right? Ben Levin, the Deputy Minister of Education, I pulled this off of his website. So he wants to engaging students through effective questions. Who invented the alphabet? Do dogs have feelings like we do? How do people measure the height of a mountain? Why do we use the same word love to describe what we feel for family members and also to describe romantic feelings? If you were alone in the house and the phone was disconnected and a robber was coming in, what would you do? So they're trying to see and question the children up front to know if they're going to go get a knife or they're going to use a cell phone or they're going to hide in a cubbyhole. This is on Ben Levin, was on Ben Levin's Boise website. They are grooming the abusers what questions to ask the children so that they know if they're going to do something, what that child's going to do. This is how sick the system is. Where's the police who deal with victim services? Where are the police in all this? I have zero respect for anybody who pretends to work in this field and has not figured out that it's the system themselves who are the ones who are the pedophiles, right?
Wow.
Yeah, stuff. What's another one I have? I was talking to you about this. This one's a little tough to hear. I was talking to you about this yesterday, the Kinsey Institute. I found my paper. This is a chart of pre-adolescent boys and how many orgasms they forced them to have in what time frame. The youngest one is 5 months, 3 orgasms. It doesn't give the time. 11 months, 10 orgasms in 1 hour. 11 months, 14 orgasms in 38 minutes. 2-year-old, 7 orgasms in 9 minutes. Anybody knows how to orgasm and you have an orgasm and you orgasm hard, it looks like bloody torture on your face. Like when you orgasm hard, and yes, I just said that on air. I don't care, but it looks like torture. Is that what they're doing to the children? Is their body's trying to fight it?
Well, and that's my question too. Are they, okay, here's the thing, and this might be stretching it a little bit. Maybe it is, but listen to what we're talking about here, but what's real is real. Is it possible that they're doing that as a form of adrenalizing the blood? As a way to adrenalize the blood? I mean, when you're in the height,
Interesting.
That's ecstasy. That's a prime element too.
That's a really good point, Brenda. We don't know. This is from the Kinsey Institute. A lot of the information I got is from Judith Reisman. So these sick fucks in the universities are doing this to pre-adolescent boys. And then what are they going to say? Because if you got an erection, you liked it. So why are these universities allowed to torture people? Why are these universities allowed to experiment on people? Whether it was you and Cameron at the University of McGill University with the MK Ultra, whether it's the pro-rape chanting minors in Frosh Week at the universities, BC and Halifax in 2013, the sexual assaults at Frosh Week in London. Why are the police not on this and understanding that these are all ritual sacrifices on September 11th? Like, why are we all so stupid that we still give any of these people the benefit of the doubt?
We're all still caught up in the system they created, brainwashed and blindsided by it, right? Actually, more than that, we're we've been cast, there's a spell cast, obviously, and the majority of the people not only are under a spell, but have rose-colored glasses and don't want to see a fucking thing anyway.
I know. But you know what? I think they're in for a rude awakening. When you look at the number of yards with white transport trailers, at 53-foot transport trailers along the 401 corridor, they're over in Breslau Airport, across the road, they're across from Whistlebear Golf Course, they're off of Shirley Ave behind Binghamton Park. There's like hundreds of trailers. I'm noticing them on Pine Bush and Cambridge. 407, when you take the 407 eastbound and you cross over the 401, if you look to the north, there used to be one field of trailers. Now there's 2 fields of trailers and there's cabs beside it. What are you going to tell us, that Trudeau was going to shut down all the trucking and you're just storing all these trailers for a purpose? Wait till bodies start stacking up and they start putting bodies in it like Cuomo did. There's a driver who came out and said, you don't mess with the Cuomo brothers. We drove seniors from the seniors home. We dropped the temperature at the back of the truck. Trudeau gave Gale and Weston, what, 12 million for refrigeration units? I bet. And they dropped the temperature to -20. They froze these people to death, the seniors, and then buried them. This is what this guy is saying. So we need to wake up as a society. So this flu is being used to cover a lot of crimes. And like you said, to distract everybody. So even if they're seeing it with rose-colored glasses, which I don't know that they are, or whether they're seeing it that they just want to be good little boys and girls, because we all got taught in the system that you do as you're told, or you get to stand in the corner and you get to wear the dunce cap, or you're going to go to the principal's office and get strapped. So a lot of people had their fight taken out of them through the education system. Why do we martyr these educators as if they're somehow glorious? Like, we have so many highly educated, stupid people on the planet who are functionally, don't understand how their bodies work, don't understand how their mind works, don't understand how consciousness evolves, don't understand the natural elements around them. Why are we so retarded when it comes to what it means to be human and even a resident, when I say resident on this planet, right? We really need to start pulling this whole system apart. And I'm not going to mention it today, but we also have to talk about creating new curriculums to replace the old ones. There's got to be something new that comes in that we realize, no, this is better than what we had. This is more aligned with truth than what we had, right? So this Judith Reisman, she goes on this list. So I think the most disgusting one was a 4-year-old, 26 orgasms in 24 hours. What sick fuck would do that to a child? And these are in the universities in the name of understanding our sexuality.
On a 4-year-old.
So why are the teachers not in jail? I can think of a few teachers who I know are just stunned who are teaching the sex ed curriculum. They honestly think that we're all sexual beings from birth. Really? I got all the parts to drive from birth. Am I a driver from birth? So we have to understand why these people are so obsessed with their own sexuality. Are they emotionally and sexually immature themselves? Do they understand what the role of love is, what the role of life is? So this is really interesting watching this guy on Telegram and all the stuff he was posting. He said that he was told to shut up, that he was saying too much. So who knows what's going to happen? But if they think they're just going to go after these chief justices who are allowing it within their police units, they're mistaken if they think they don't have the second one, the third one, and the fourth one ready to replace them. Like, that's just naive to assume that you're just going to take the head off a snake and that's going to be it. You know, you need to go right down the snake and rip it open.
Absolutely.
Because it's at every level, right? So this is interesting when we're talking about this, because I was dumbfounded when they're showing the logos and they're saying what city signs are basically saying we promote pedophilia here. Somebody told me in Waterloo there was a sign a couple of years back. They would put it up over one of the bridges, like the overpasses, and it said, "Thank you for bringing us your virgins." What the fuck do you think is going to happen to these girls?
Yeah.
When in September 11th, when all those girls were raped down in the University of Western Ontario, I forgot about this. There was an 18-year-old boy who was beaten to death. So he was sacrificed as well. Why does everybody assume that we have such a great system here? When, do you know who Alice Bailey is?
Oh.
A lot of people pull this out and they say it's to destroy Christianity. I think it's to destroy the heart and soul of humanity. But the 10 steps that they were going to take. So you tell me the education system isn't doing this. Take God and prayer out of the education system. Whatever God, if it's creator, source, universe, whatever, right? Reduce parental authority over the children. Parents are assholes now, no matter what they do. They're taught to believe that no matter what, there's an expert who knows more than they do what's right for the children. This has been ingrained in the system, that we have a system of experts. What are they expert at, right? Destroy the Judeo-Christian family structure or the traditional Christian family structure. They're calling it Judeo-Christian. I look at that as a mother and a father and children. You do need a mother and a father. If sex is free, then make abortion illegal and make it easy. How many women fight for their right to have an abortion? Who says that these baby parts or these babies are torn up? That's what we're told. Who's to say they're not brought out of the mother and then finish raising them in a pod and then harvested? Who's to say? Like, what do we believe anymore, right? Make divorce easy and legal. Free people from the concept of marriage for life. Well, maybe if they show people what love is about. This is funny because I'm not in a relationship, right? But so I'm not hypocritical about this, but make divorce easy and legal. Free people from the concept of marriage for life. Why doesn't anybody teach the younger generations what it means to have a great marriage? What platforms are there in a marriage? You know, there's the outer fun things, but there's also the internal growth. What do you want to achieve with a partner that you can only achieve with a romantic partner, that you can't achieve with somebody else? But we aren't taught any of that, or even to look for any of that. This is where part of my curriculum is going to make a change going forward. Make homosexuality an alternative lifestyle. Debase art, make it run mad. Use media to promote and change mindsets. Create an interfaith movement. I don't quite know what that means. Get governments to make all these laws and get the church to endorse these changes. But we're seeing a lot of the churches are not speaking up about the pedophilia. If anything, they're supporting the LGBT agenda, right? I had some other things here. You know, they're talking about the pedophiles. They're saying that one of them came out and said, of course, we're trying to sexualize your children. And then the transgender movement. Now you're a homophobe if you won't have sex with a transgender. Like, where are these people? And this is what so much is missing in our society. It's a solid moral foundation that creates a strong spiritual house. But it's like morality. Everybody's encouraged to debase themselves. And I don't care if you just money's your whore, that's all you're interested in, and you're a good little girl or boy, and you go home and you watch your sports at night, or you watch your TV programming at night. You're part of the problem because you're still feeding into that system, right?
Well, and that's the thing, right? It all comes back to what is the system that we're feeding. And it doesn't really matter where you are in this conversation, in this world even, because whether you're talking about human trafficking, child trafficking, sex, whatever that is, whether you're talking about masks, V's, and all that other crap, it all relates to the same system, the system that they've devised to keep us entangled, to keep us all embroiled in this bullshit that is really nothing. There's no substance to it. It's all
no value. Yeah.
Right. It is absolutely that, no value to it. And that's what they've created for us to be a part of, because they want to take the value out of our lives. They want to take the meaning, because we're all here for what? What is the meaning of life? That's all. The one question everybody fucking asks: what's the meaning of life? Why am I here? They've totally done, you know, so that you never ask. You're dumbed down from the word go. You're sold into slavery, You're dumbed down with your water, your food, your chemtrails, all the other shit, your education, everything to keep you separate and artificial.
Yes, artificial, synthetic.
Yeah, not true, right? Not real, not human.
Not human. And it's our human selves when we understand how powerful we are as men and women, and I'm going to say even as children as they grow into their strength, when we understand how powerful our consciousness is and what we can do with our minds, we blow the system away.
Absolutely. And the minute we understand that, the system disintegrates. Like it's gone. Once everybody wakes up to, I see what you fucking did there, asshole, and I'm not playing the game no more, then we know. I think they go after the children because they are more powerful, because they're pure. They are unindoctrinated. They are, they're still very connected to source. They're still very pure in a lot of ways, and they're innocence. It's the innocence they're after.
Totally. And that's what I started talking about with the thymus when I said CV19. With this book, this gentleman says that the children, the energy in the children is different until they hit puberty. And that's why I think they want them all before age 12. I know they're talking about Ritalin brings on early onset puberty. So they're prescribing all these mental health drugs to the kids in school. Who are these people who are saying that you have the right to decide somebody goes on a drug because they aren't listening to you? Who says you know what the hell you're doing? And this is where I think we need to either one, the system has to dismantle, but we, whatever system comes in, there has to be parents who are in the classroom with the teacher, who maybe volunteer, that don't go along with everything the teacher says, but listen to see if the teacher slips up.
Plants. We need operatives. That's what we need. And these people, they're all just complacent, right? They're all complicit and complacent. And I got to keep my job. And well, this is what the curriculum teaches now. No, I don't fucking think so. I'll tell you, I'll share this with you real briefly. About, let's see, my oldest is 30. When he was in grade 6, I think it was. And I'm a very active parent. Like I was very active. I was on the school advisory committee. I mean, I did volunteers. I did, because it was very important to me. And I wanted to know what my kids were being taught, right? It's important. You're not the only one raising my kid. I'm not the only one. You're raising my kid too. So it's important that we're all on board together. They came out with this friggin' study where they had given the kids an article that was part of a newspaper clipping about, and they were actually, what they were doing was trying to get them to report the facts, right? To see something that might have been, disturbing even, and report just the facts was what I got the idea was. And I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. Why you need something disturbing, right? But I don't really know what their intention was. But the frigging article they gave my kid was about a young woman, a young girl, like 12 or 14 or something like that. She was at home alone with her, not alone. She was at home with her grandmother, elderly grandmother, middle of a blizzard out in the East Coast somewhere, like, 12 fucking feet of snow or whatever it was. Knock at the door in the middle of the night and opens it to a serial killer she doesn't know it. The guy comes in, starts stabbing her and stabbing at her grandmother. The grandmother falls and she's running for her life. The most graphic fucking article I think I've ever come across. And I've read some stories, but honestly, I was livid. I cannot tell you.
That's what they gave your son.
That's what they gave my son and said, give us a report on that. And then I got on the goddamn board. I got on with the board and I was hopping mad. And I mean, hopping mad to the point where I made her actually say, if you're not going to change the fucking curriculum, because I'm going to go public with this, if you don't change the curriculum, you better do something to amend it. I said, you're desensitizing our children. And that's not acceptable. I don't give a fuck. I understand video games are doing it. I get that. But we don't need your help too. We don't need your fucking help. I was so mad. She said, we're going to make an amendment, ma'am. We're going to put an amendment into the curriculum so that the teacher has to address the fact that this kind of graphic nature does desensitize children. I don't know if they actually managed or not, because it was 8 years before my
kids. That's still not enough. They shouldn't be in there in the first place. I've got a list. I think it's 274 pages, and the first page and a half, it shows all the school shootings. I think most of them were in the US and Canada. I don't recall if some were in Europe. I don't even know where I put that stock, but they were all on mental health drugs. They're coming off Prozac or Zoloft. Like, we honestly think that, and they want more kids on drugs in schools. Who the fuck are these teachers? Who do they think they are? What gives them the right? Why are they not in jail or at least charged with crimes against children? So we really need to start pulling all of this system apart and asking ourselves, why do we tolerate such insanity from the people who are supposedly the sane ones? It's funny, between Christmas and New Year's, I was invited to a house party, and I was talking to a man who worked in a hospital, and he was let go because he wouldn't take the shot. And he said he used to work in a mental health facility, but he wasn't an orderly, he was a psychiatric assistant. So basically, if one of the patients didn't want to do what the nurses did and they started fighting back, he would restrain them. At one point, he looks at me and he goes, you know, there's times it crossed my mind that it wasn't the patients who were crazy, it was the people who worked here. And I'm like, keep going, buddy, keep going. We are living in one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Look at the doctor, the 80-year-old doctor out in BC, when he talked about how many stillborn deaths were happening in Waterloo. I can't remember if he was talking about the hospital out there as well. They locked him up for a month and wanted to give him mental health drugs. Why can we not take that doctor and give him one good hoof right between the knees and take him out? What narcissists, what sociopaths, what psychopaths think they have that power? How fucked up are they on a personality scale that they think they can do that to another human being and it's acceptable because it's my job?
Just
How many people work at the front desk? Sorry?
Just following orders.
Just following orders, right? But I say they're not following orders. I say they're getting off on it. They're actually getting off on the power trip, because a lot of people are saying the elites get off on the power trip. Power control is the unspoken addiction. It goes through the whole system. It doesn't matter if it's a teacher, if it's a principal, a mental health monkey. You know, I know a woman one time, I don't know her, I was talking to her out for a walk, and we just started talking, and she told me that her doctor told her she had cancer, and she said, I'm going to get a second opinion and look at alternative recommendations. He put her down as having mental illness, that she was non-conforming. We think these people aren't out there. Just because you slap something in a lab coat and put lipstick on it or something doesn't mean it's not a pig. We really have to start questioning the people that we are sending other people to as the experts instead of trusting ourselves. I trust myself implicitly. I trust that I will know who to trust for if I need information outside of my purview or my knowledge base. I trust that I will know who to contact, or I will ask people for recommendations and make the decision that I need to make. But this is what we've been trained not to do. You do the same. I know you do, right?
Yeah, but you know, Sandy, like I've said, I don't even know how many times I've read for people, and I've been blessed to read for a lot of people over the last 16 years. I've had no shortage of clients, and I will tell you this: the two themes that I find are predominant and prevalent through everybody are trust and self-worth. And if there's ever things that we're talking about at the core of what this problem is about, it's about people not being willing to trust themselves and trusting the wrong people and not valuing who they are and not letting people fucking touch them when they shouldn't be touching them.
And it's interesting that you talk about the word, because I do a lot of emotional clearing as well, and self-worth. I have a list of negative ego blocks, and usually it means they talk poorly about themselves, or they feel shame, or they feel guilt, or they criticize themselves. Maybe it's that inner voice from childhood, but they don't trust themselves enough and they don't believe in themselves exactly. So if you don't believe in yourself, then you can't be worthy of great things.
That's right.
And an interesting thing happened. So you and I were talking yesterday, and you know, it's great because we bring out things like I never would have thought about, the adrenalizing the blood with making those bodies orgasm. Like we bring out really good ideas that maybe the other one hadn't thought of. But we were talking about, now we have to go back and grow our own food, and we have to live outside the city, and we have to find new ways of finding water because they're trying to destroy the water system on us. And I'm like, that's not good enough for us. I'm not going back just to surviving and going back 100 years and using hand tools because we don't have hydro or whatever. That's not acceptable. We want to know what technologies are available, what information is out there. How do we access the earth energies as it was designed to do and work with our electromagnetic frequencies? I want to know what the good stuff is. I want to move forward in leaps and bounds. And yeah, that's going to be a little scary at times, because then you're not going to know whether you can trust whatever you're being shown then even. So we've got a ways to go before we get through all this the trust issues. But like we can ask for more for ourselves. We don't have to take the little handouts that are being offered us by the governments or the medical community. So one thing we were talking about yesterday, this is before this flu epidemic supposedly broke. In the United States, it was estimated that 300,000 people die per year by using the medical system the way it's supposed to, medical procedures, and taking pharmaceutical drugs the way they're prescribed. 300,000. But the media has everybody all freaked out that 30,000 people die by gun violence every year. We got to get rid of the guns. So they tell you what to look at. They were killing you long before this flu shit started. And why don't people not develop standards for themselves and say, no, we do not accept this. You can't sue them. What? So basically they have a license to kill.
What happened to malpractice? Do you know they took the oath out? Do you know that the oath that the doctors swear to, apparently back in 2011, they took the first do no harm part out?
They're psychopaths, they're sociopaths. And if you're part of this organization and you haven't figured this out, you're part of the problem. I was listening to Stu Peters. There's a woman, I don't know what state she's in the hospital. I think it's Mercy Hospital. Would that be New York? I don't know. But basically they planning on killing her husband. She had to get a lawyer and she went to court and they've agreed not to do anything until February 11th, but they get paid almost $100,000 by the time they diagnose you. They put you on a ventilator. You put it on the death certificate that it's related to the flu. The hospitals get about $100,000. You think they're not going to fuck you for $100,000? You're on crack.
Who gets that money? Right? Hospitals get that money, but who's given that money? Now we got to follow the money. The money goes back, not just to the science and the funders, but to the elite. Everybody's in
the
debt
government. So the government are the ones giving out the money, right? But here's the funny thing. So when you turn 65, whether you wait till 65 to collect your pension, whether, I don't know what the ages are in the UK or the US, but Canada, you collect your pension and you're getting what, $1,100 a month. So that's like $12,000 a year.
roughly.
Right?
Most cases, not even that much.
So that's at the max. So that's at the max. So I'm going to use the max as the example, right? So if that's the case, so if you're looking at $12,000, $13,000 a year that you're getting, that's only about 8 years, 10 years. Like, it's not even 10 years. And basically, it's cheaper to kill you and pay out $100,000 max than it is to pay you your pension. And I don't know how it works in the United States, but here in Canada, the employer pays half and the employee pays half. Why the government is managing this money is beyond me, because they don't contribute a dime to it. They're the ones who squirrel it away, and they're the ones who get to decide if you live or die, whether they pay you out or not, and how much they pay you, because we're the keepers of the money, right? Like it's just, it's insane. So back in the day when Jim Flaherty was trying to increase Canada pension contribution amounts, what's it called? What's the institute? The Unbiased Institute. It's not the Franklin Institute. What's it called? I can't remember. Yeah, isn't that awful? I was just thinking about this the other day. But anyways, they came out and said yes, but no. And I'm like, what kind of an answer is yes, but no? Increase the Canada pension contribution limits, yes, but no. So I go through and I write a 4-page email and I'm like, unless there's a retirement ferry, I know even old age security is paid by Fraser Institute. Even if the old age security pension, like taxpayers are paying that because the government's not generating any revenue for that. And I said, all this money should be going to the estates of the people who contribute this money. That would be like a $400,000 or $500,000 estate. They never got back to me. And if you know anything about women, people, if you know anything about women, you can say no to us, blow us off. Man, that annoys me. That annoys us to no end. So then I had to start going through the papers and I'm like, well, who funds the Fraser Institute? Oh, Stephen Harper's government gave him $300,000 the year before. Well, who sponsored the study that the Fraser Institute was studying? Oh, the University of Alberta, right in Harper's backyard. Jim Flaherty, Harper's finance minister, wants to increase the Canada pension contribution limits. And then a couple of weeks later, CIBC comes out and says, yeah, you should increase Canada pension. We agree. That'd be like me telling, as a financial planner, saying, go to the competition. Then I find out 2 weeks after that, John Manley, the ex-Liberal finance minister, sits on the board of directors of CIBC. Like, this whole game is rigged. So Rona Ambrose screws over the system, but she's the interim leader. She's now on Manulife board of directors, which is all the drug plans and the retirement funds. So they'll get paid going forward. So you fuck over the people and then you'll get a nice cushy director's job when you're done and still keep your pay.
Your income to pay to pension out with, and that's the thing. All these people that have paid into the CPP and everything else and that have died, where does their money go?
And some of it will go to their partner, but I think it's guaranteed until they die. But it's guaranteed 10 months or 10 years, I think, to the estate. I have to go back and look at that. But so basically, the money goes to the government. You don't know that. Get rid of all these fuckers. We don't need these people. They do nothing but cause problems.
535 politicians are running 38 million people around right now.
Well, maybe it's time we run them out of town because there's not one of them that we need. So do you remember, I don't remember what year it was, Canada Pension came out, or not Canada Pension, CRA, Canada Revenue Agency came out and said they found 340, I think it was $1 million in trusts offshore outside of Canada. Flaherty comes out and says, ladies, if you rat out your husbands, we'll give you half of it. That's income splitting. Why was there nobody from government who said, wait a minute, you just legalized having offshore trusts? People are so stupid, even the money people, nobody even clued in to say, wait a minute, you just legalized the theft. Oh, ladies, if you rat out your husbands, we'll give you half of it. Really? So like, we need to start calling this shit out for what it is. Why do we trust these idiots? Some of them are stupid, some of them are greedy, some of them are just bastards. There's some that they're just bad. Why don't we just call these 500 people out? Get the fuck out. We can do it without you. This includes all the mayors in the cities. You look at Nenshi in Alberta, he's gay. Like, is there any of them that's even straight? I don't even think Trudeau's straight. Harper's gay. Like, John Baird is gay. Like, there's so many of them who are homosexual. This is why they get brought in, I think, because they will be perverted. I'm not picking on naturally gay people. I'm not picking on them. I don't really care. But when you start dictating what other people have to do based on your preferences, we got to start questioning your motives. I'm not asking anybody to stay straight, but it is more of a natural tendency for a male and a female. Mother Nature designed us perfectly to complement each other. So why do we need somebody in a school system perverting this? If anybody wants to have the love talk and the sex talk with me, I'm your girl. I have no problem having this conversation, but it's not going to be about whether you play with your ding dong or not. We're going to talk about what love is. What's the role of love in relationships? Why do we need connection? What is it about the connection that can make us stronger as a species? There's so many more things to talk about. Like, I'm just giving a general overview on here. Absolutely. Right. But we really need to start giving these people, we need to give our head a shake, but we really need to start rattling this tree called society and ask what the hell we're doing. Because right. we're killing the little ones emotionally, mentally, spiritually, sexually. Yeah. And we really need
abortion, right? The perversion of the human.
Yeah.
Anything to distort and pervert a pure creation.
Yes. And that's what this system is all about. And when we start seeing these people, like I could pretty much have a debate with anybody on this, and not to win. I don't need to win, but I can hold my own in this conversation. I know you can as well, but maybe we need more people who can actually say, no, this is not the way we were intended to be. And you're gonna call me a homophobe, a germaphobe, what, a racial phobe? You know, white people are part of the problem because they've been, they're the middle class, but they've also the ones who run the universities, and a lot of them, they're the deans in the universities, or they're the student councils. They're running a lot of this. The school boards, a lot of them, even in Peel, which is mostly East Indian, a lot of the boards are white. I'm not picking on white people, but you don't get a pass because you're white. You don't get a pass because you're of color. You get a pass based on your integrity and what you'll do to right the wrongs. And we need to start calling this out, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm so grateful that you're here with me doing this too, because we're all stronger together. But when people see two women like us having this conversation, maybe it'll make it easier for them to also have this conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? They need to be had. They do. They absolutely need to be had. We can't be shy about it. You know, there's so many times where we're, you know, we want to mince words, or we want to, you know, adjust what we say or whatever. And, you know, there's a sense of, you know, diplomacy you can have, and certainly some decorum about it, but don't not say the truth, right? Let's talk about stuff, because it is what it is. And the faster we get it out in the open, the less scary and upsetting it can be, and the less damage it does for us.
Totally. Right? And a lot of what we're talking about, the sexualization of a society, we're not meant to talk sex with 30 of your closest peers. It's supposed to be a very intimate experience between you and your romantic partner when you're old enough to understand. We have to talk about this because it's been so bastardized and perverted. We have to talk about the role. And I know this can be a difficult conversation for men. I'm going to say this because you're not meant to listen to women talk intimately to you outside your chosen woman, but they can listen to you and I talk and then go back and assess it for themselves and make their own decisions on it. So, and I'm not cutting them slack, but basically you and I are talking, we're both straight, but we're not talking in a sexual tone. This is where the conversation still has to be had. And when I was going to the protest rallies for the sex ed curriculum, I would watch young men, they would come up and they would listen. They would stand back about 15, 20 feet. They'd want to hear what I had to say, but they couldn't come up and interact with me. I'm not their chosen female. So they still had that respect and the, what do you call that, humility, that they wanted to hear the information, but they didn't want to come in and address it with me personally. They didn't want to have the conversation and share their intimacy with me. I had other couples, like I've had, I remember one young Indian couple, the husband and wife came up, they would both ask me questions, but it was okay because I was answering her and he was still listening. So I didn't plant myself into their marriage. It was like, so there's a way to have these conversations that don't make people uncomfortable. And if it means you just listen until you start getting a bearing, or if, you know, maybe you and I can do a live one time and do Q&A that people can actually ask us their questions. We've talked about that. Maybe we can set up a live and ask us questions. We're not doing the mechanics of sex. We're not doing the mechanics of fucking. Don't tell me your sexual hangups or any kind of disorders you have. This is not what this is about. This is about writing humanity and understanding that our sexuality is such an important part of us, right? So yeah, you've mentioned doing a live. Maybe we should do one and just open it up that if people want to ask us questions. I'm not saying we have all the answers. We don't know what anybody's going to ask.
No, and none of it is even my chosen field. You know, I'm not educated in any of it other than life education.
It is your field. You are educated in life, and this is we're all experts in life. What is the purpose of life? Why are we here? What are we here to experience? What are our hangups? What are our programs that block us from moving forward? What kind of culturing program have we had that are impeding us now? So you are an expert in life. So am I. And for the people who aren't sure of themselves and don't trust themselves yet or don't think you're worthy, you're an expert in life. You just might not have the confidence to call it out yet. You've got life experiences that matter, that there's no expert that's more qualified to be you than you. And we really need to start taking our power back.
I agree.
Yes. So I'm going to put your contact information on this video, and I'll put mine down below in the description box. If you have any questions for Brenda and I, we don't mind if you reach out to us personally. And we'll put an announcement on maybe if we're going to do a live, whether we do one next Friday or not. But I think we really need to start having these conversations and inviting other people to share their situations with us.
Yeah, because it's not just about us.
It's not at all. We're just facilitating. And we both use that word, right? Even when we do energy clearing and things like that, we facilitate the other person taking ownership of their own energy and making their own recoveries or clearing their own blocks or aspiring to be their best. So perfect.
I take credit only for my part, whatever that small bit is, but the rest of it is up to them, not me.
Totally. And it's okay to know that, right? So thank you. It's been a lovely chat, and we'll talk soon. Bye,
Enjoy.
everybody. Thanks, you too.
Bye now. Take